Hey everybody, I'm Rebecca Giannini. I'm a parenting and relationship coach, and this is my group. If you are here, it's because you want to shift your relationships. You probably want to heal some generational patterns, some dysfunction in your family, and learn about healthy communication patterns, in which case you are in the right spot. I go live every single week at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I talk about everything related to those topics and more. Tonight's topic is something that we've talked about a lot in the group, but there are a couple of distinct differences. We're talking about reflective listening and conflict management. So my recommendation for you would be to put in requests for the other related videos, because here I'm going to talk about some caveats to that. So there are multiple trainings in this group and multiple videos regarding reflective listening as a whole and conflict management as a whole, but it's a little bit different in adult relationships. So right now, I'm just going to talk about those differences, but if you want to have an overall understanding of those skills as a whole, put it in the comments and we will make sure that you get those related videos. So one of the things that we do while we're using reflective listening is we tend to look past what I call arrows. So as we're using reflective listening, we're often doing that with somebody who's in an escalated state. So they might be in what I call an emotional storm. And when somebody's in an emotional storm, sometimes if they're unskilled, they say things that are exaggerated, or they say things that are not exactly what they mean. The more skilled a person is, the more they're able to say what they mean without going over the top. But if you're talking to kids, and if you're talking to somebody who is maybe unskilled, they might be still exaggerating, or they might be saying some of what they saying something more intensely than they mean it, because they don't have language to say what they want to say, which is part of why using reflective listening is so important, because your reflections will help you determine if that person is exaggerating, if that person is saying more than what they truly mean. So if you're using reflective listening with a child who's in a fight with their sibling and they're saying, "I hate her, I wish she was never born," it's a pretty intense thing to say, and it's probably not how they feel most of the time. It's probably that's the language they have for this intense feeling of anger toward their sibling. When in a baseline moment, they probably don't feel like they wish she was never born, but they're feeling so mad that that's the language they have for that. Through reflective listening and bringing back those arrows, so that would be an arrow statement, bringing back the arrows when they're in a regulated state, we can ask them, we can get to know if they really mean that, and maybe we have some deeper work to do, or if they said that because they were really mad and they didn't have language for, this anger is so intense that it's exploding out of me, right? So through reflective listening, we want to help offer somebody more precise language for the feelings that they have. And oftentimes the way that we hurt each other in conflict is by describing our feelings in less than ideal ways. So it's going to hurt a lot more feelings that in a sibling situation, if the child says, "I wish you were never born," versus, "I'm so upset with you, I need some space, I have so much anger towards you that I can't be near you right now." That's still going to hurt, that's still going to be painful, but it's not going to cause as much damage as if somebody says, "I hate you, I wish you were never born." So when we're using reflective listening with kids and people who are less skilled, it's important to try and look past some of the arrow statements they send your way and use your reflections to check in what they really mean. And I recommend that doing that for kids, looking past the arrows they send your way or they send somebody else's way, and wait till they are back in a regulated state to say something like, hey, when you were, remember earlier, you were really upset with your sister and you said you wish she was never born. The child might immediately correct and say, I know I shouldn't have said that, but I was just so mad, right? Then we know, okay, they just needed better language and they need to practice using better language when they're upset. If they double down on it, yeah, I can't stand it. Mom, I don't know why you had her. Mom, she's always here, right? Then we might recognize that we have more unprocessed anger to deal with that has to do with the wound of that sibling being born. That gives us more information, but we need to bring that arrow back when they're in a regulated state. With adults, however, we need to draw boundaries. So we're going to do this a little bit differently, because we're not going to allow somebody to call us names or raise their voice to us or make character statements or anything like that. So if you're having these conversations with adult, or you're trying to do conflict management with an adult, it's really important that you draw those boundaries and end the conversation, and only resume the conversation when somebody can engage without calling names, without sending arrows your way or speaking to you inappropriately. So if somebody is dismissing your feelings and you're bringing up a situation to them and say their response is, you're so sensitive, or stop being so stubborn, or you always do this. If they're making these statements like you always, you never, you're such a, you're this, you're that, if they're labeling you or your character, it's important to end the conversation. And you might say something like, it's not okay I'm happy to talk about my behavior, but it's not okay for you to attack my character. We can finish this conversation when you can talk to me about what I'm doing without labeling my character. Or if you're going to raise your voice to me, we can't continue this conversation. If it happens again, I'm going to end the conversation. Something to that effect. If you are having these conversations with an adult, draw your boundary and then make sure that you enforce that boundary. And it doesn't have to be, this electrical fence boundary. It doesn't have to be this huge fiery boundary. It can just be, I'm going to end this conversation. I can't engage well with you anymore right now. I need to go. I need to be done with this conversation, or I want to be done talking. And like I've said in other videos, you might not have seen those other videos, but the person who retreats from the conversation is also the person who needs to re-engage. So if you are the one who says, hey, I'm not ready to finish this conversation, or this conversation is too much for me, or I can't talk to you about this without engaging in a character statement, so I'm going to go take care of myself. It would be your job to come back and open up the conversation. And you would need to first take responsibility for the way that you ended that conversation before. So if you ended it, by storming out or whatever it was, you take accountability for that too, and then come back to the original topic of conversation. This is really difficult, especially if this is not what was modeled for you, which is likely the case if you're here. A lot of you are working on healing generational dysfunction that was modeled to you over and over and over. So it can feel really difficult to back away from a conversation, or it feels like maybe you don't have a choice, or this is the only time we're going to get it out, or maybe you're dealing with a partner who tends to avoid difficult conversations. And if that's the case, then it might feel like a fight is the only way that you get your needs met. If that is the case, you likely have some more deeper work to do, and please let me know if that is the position you're in, and I can make some recommendations for you based on that situation. But overall, the message here for tonight is that dealing with an unskilled child is different than dealing with an unskilled adult. And just because you're dealing with an unskilled adult with good intentions, it doesn't mean that you should be accepting more from them than you deserve. So you need to be able to end conversations or end interactions where that person is crossing the line with you. It doesn't have to be done in a super emotional way. It doesn't have to be done, and it ideally shouldn't be done with a raised voice. But make sure that you're honoring your own boundaries. And in order to do that, you need to know what they are. You need to know that, hey, I'm not willing to engage with somebody who is raising their voice to me, or I'm not willing to engage with somebody who is saying character statements. That's a boundary for me. I'm not going to engage with somebody who is saying, you're such a, you always, you never, this is who you are. We are talking about behavior and not character. And so we're not going to cause each other more damage through conflict resolution. The whole point of conflict resolution is to come together and connect and improve the relationship. So if our communication is causing direct harm, then we need to end it and re-engage when we can do that in a healthy way. If you have any questions, please let me know. I don't see any questions in the comments. And my plan is to keep this live fairly short because, like I said earlier, I have all of the other reflective listening topics in the group. The other thing that I will say about conflict management is that when you are in conflict, most of the time, both parties have something meaningful to add to the conversation. And one of the biggest ways that I see couples and co-parents struggle is they can't see the other person, the other party's point of view. They can't engage with that in a meaningful way. And sometimes they can't even name accurately what the person is truly upset about. So as you're using reflective listening, you want to be able to just describe that person's desire as accurately as they can, if not more. You want to seek to understand their point of view and their struggle and be able to reflect that back to them in your own language. You should be able to describe that. So when you are seeking to find a solution, you should be able to name their desire and their need, your desire and your need, and find a solution that meets both of those needs. Because we're no longer accepting win-lose relationships. We're not doing that anymore. We are looking for win-win dynamics in which everybody gets their needs met. So in order to do that, we need to understand what that person's need is, and we need to understand what our needs are. And sometimes people can't fully articulate their own needs as well. So when you're going to have a conflict resolution conversation with somebody else, think about what if I had to boil down my need or my desire into one statement, what would it be? And as you're forming that statement, keep it to behavior instead of character, and keep it to what you want instead of what you don't want. So for example, if we're talking to a person about the way that they communicate, we might say, I want you to talk to me about my behavior instead of my character. Or when we're having a conversation, I want you to stay present with your feelings and communicate what you need from me. And that's very different than, I need you to stop shutting down in conversations, right? So if we're telling somebody what we don't want from them, their brain still has a picture of the thing that we're asking them not to do. We're saying, like, stop yelling is different than speak to me with kindness even when you're upset. Or no running is different than walk, please, right? And it's the same principle in these communication conversations. We want to think of what we want from that person, and we want to keep it to behavior instead of character. All right, I will see you next week. Please be kind to yourself. This journey of shifting communication patterns and communication with yourself, communication with others, is difficult work. So be gentle with yourself as you are navigating this journey. As always, reach out to me or Christina with any questions. And if you are ready to take the next step in your communication with your family or with your partner, reach out to us and let me know. We have so many different programs that would absolutely change your life, and you wouldn't believe what's possible with the right skills and support. So I will see you in the comments. I will see you in DMs, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.